Hello plant lovers, welcome to my channel. It's Matthew in Melbourne and I post every week growing cold, cool, intermediate orchids here in Melbourne without any help from grow lights or humidifiers or greenhouses. Just me, my very amateur skills growing things indoors or outdoors or not at all. So do hit subscribe if you are remotely interested or that might be of use to you. I post every week. And now, today, plant lovers, a mixed bag, because all of these things are kind of interesting, but perhaps not worthy of a video yet, and a new book. So let's talk about these, and I'll also talk about something else which might be on the turn in terms of producing a flower, which will give me great relief. And yes, a new book. Now, I just found this at an op shop, a thrift store. It's called Orchids at Kew, edited by Joyce Stewart, and it's published by Kew Gardens. And it's a lot about the orchid collection in Kew, but more interestingly perhaps the history of the collecting and the people that did it and the naming, but also some interesting information about some sorts of orchids and some care. But I just find it really interesting. It was published in 1992, so is quite out of date in terms of the name changes and new things that have emerged since the 90s, which, oh my goodness, that is 30 years ago. I suddenly feel old. Anyway, a very interesting book, and I found it a great read largely because of a lot of the historical background about orchid naming and orchid finding and plant hunters in the 19th century, etc., etc. So there we go. I'll put the details of that below. And so, kind of a segue, but not, leads me to these three things which I thought I'd show you. First cab then off the rank is this little Masdevallia. Now look at that. I got to get out of the way so it focuses. Isn't that the most beautiful little plant? This is Masdevallia floribunda, and I bought this in one of those little plastic sleeves in a big local hardware store in Australia for $8.95. I'd never seen a Masdevallia in one of those sleeves, and I've never seen a floribunda before. So it just goes to show sometimes those sleeves do contain the most amazing species orchids, and this is a species orchid. It's native to Central America and it's an epiphyte. The other Masdevallia species I've got is actually a terrestrial type, so this one is different. Similar conditions though, so you know, gentle light but morning light, etc. But what has thrilled me is the flower. Now I have to say the word floribunda means floriferous, literally. It's used a lot in roses to describe the fact that the plant has lots of flowers. So this one has one, but I presume as it gets bigger it will be more floriferous and a whole sort of mound of these beautiful little flowers, which, what color am I calling that? Is it brown or is it a sort of a burgundy? Anyway, tiny little thing. It is quite inconspicuous, isn't it, plant lovers? Does it deserve a place in my life? I can't ever get rid of things though once I've got them. But I'm obviously going to grow it up into a beautiful clump and we'll hopefully get lots of flowers. So it is going to join my other Masdevallias living outside all year. So there we go, Masdevallia floribunda. First new orchid for me, cab off the rank today. Another new orchid for me, which I am so happy about, which you'll all probably recognize immediately, is Dendrobium Hibiki. Now, last year I was very kindly asked to do a care collaboration video with Nina of Ninja Orchids. And obviously I watch her channel and watch her videos, and at about that same time she produced a care video on Dendrobium Hibiki, and I thought, oh my goodness, look at the colors of that flower. I cannot live without it. So immediately went online, nothing, just not available in Australia. And I thought, oh, always the case, isn't it? Anyway, I thought nothing more about it and thought, I'm never going to have a Hibiki, but anyway, there we go. And what should pop up on eBay about 3 months ago was one Dendrobium Hibiki. So it's mine. Now I cannot give you any care information. I'll put the link to Ninja Orchids care video on that because it was a care collab and there were lots of people around the world growing this, so in different conditions. All I can say is that it arrived with those blooms and they are still on. So this is a couple of months later. The other thing, Hibiki is a hybrid between a couple of types of Dendrobium, so not a plant that's going to get particularly big, and you can probably see that it's flowering from the very top of the canes, and this is a new cane that's matured. By the looks of it, I'm presuming it only flowers from matured leafless canes from the previous season, so like many Dendrobiums, it's all about vegetative growth. And what you can just see there perhaps is a new growth. So I repotted this, oops, and I'm dropping the potting mix. I repotted this as soon as I got it. I have read that it is an orchid that likes moisture and not to really dry out. So as you can see, there's probably a lot more sphagnum moss in there than I would normally put in a dendrobium. Anyway, so there we are. It is stayed happy. So the flowers stayed alive and perky all the way through my repotting process and through being sent through the mail through eBay. Not a fragrance. I thought for some reason, I seem to remember Hibiki should be fragrant. Oh, anyway, it seems to be my luck that things that should be aren't. But anyway, such an amazing colour. And as it matures, I just can't wait to see these beautiful, fluffy pillows of magenta flowers, which last forever. Oh my goodness, they still look as fresh as a daisy. And they were literally open when it was sent to me. So imagine being squished in a packet. And it's now 2 or 3 months later, so that is amazing cost per wear orchid. The next year, if I get it to rebloom, I will definitely make a video about that to add to the care video collections, even though I think Ninja Orchids video is probably all you need to watch about it. And then the last cab off the rank is this. Look at that delicate beauty. Isn't it amazing? I was in one of my favourite nurseries, which is called Fitzroy Nursery here in Melbourne. I'll put the link to that below. And I saw this in bloom. I thought, that's interesting. And look what the label says, popcorn. Not particularly useful. So looking at it, it looks sort of Oncidium-y like. So I imagined it was from the Oncidium alliance. And so I thought, oh, well, it will obviously do well indoors for me as I grow my other Oncidiums. But what I loved was the smallness and the delicacy of the flower sprays. It's just gorgeous. It's like fluffy air. And so after a very quick Google, and I just literally Googled popcorn orchid to see what popped up. It turns out that it is a primary hybrid and it is called Ionocidium. So Ionocidium Popcorn, I'll put that name below for you. And it's a cross between a Gomessa and an Ionopsis, both of which I have actually. I have an Ionopsis and I have a Gomessa, so it's interesting. But it's beautiful, isn't it? So again, I can't give you any care details about this, just to say that I'm going to give it Oncidium conditions care, which means bright indirect lights, moderate watering, not over watering it, not letting it dry out completely. And I might keep this indoors all year. We will see, because I did actually kill. Now this is a story. You know what? I'm going to go and get it to show you. Hang on. Here we are. This is my Ionopsis. Excuse the price tag that won't come off the pot. It's produced this whole new growth for me since I had it, and I am very excited. Now here's the story about this. And this is Ionopsis utriculoides. Oh, that's a big name. Anyway, has the most beautiful flowers. Google it and have a look. They're sort of a pale lilac and the most stunning blooms. Anyway, the story is, once again, actually like this, I found the seedling in one of those plastic slips in a hardware store for $8.95, and just the picture of the flower got me. Anyway, plant lovers, I have never ever seen it before or since in one of those slips, and this isn't the plant because I killed it. What I did was decided that it would be fine outdoors all year, and it was a seedling, basically sort of almost fresh out of being deflasked, and obviously only just potted in sphagnum moss in one of the smallest little tube pots, and then put in this plastic sleeve. So it's already been through a little bit of birth trauma, let's just say, and then I immediately repotted it and glibly left it outside in winter, obviously undercover, protected from the rain, but subject to cold winter nighttime minimums. And plant lovers, guess what? It died. I was quite devastated because it was so pretty, the flower, the image of it looked, and I had never seen it. I've never seen it online, on eBay, or plant sellers lists, nowhere. And so I went back to the hardware store, and of course there wasn't any. It was the only one that was there. Every time I went back to these hardware stores, all of them have those seedling orchids in plastic slips. So I had a look and no. Anyway, I was way out in the suburbs for some reason doing something, and I passed, and this store franchise here in Australia is called Bunnings. It's just a huge, it's like B&Q or Home Depot, an enormous chain of hardware stores, which also have a nursery attached. And I was out at a far-flung branch, and I drove past this Bunnings, thought, you know, and I still had this bee in my bonnet about IONOPSIS. So I did a mercy dash. I pulled in and I just visualized it, and I walked in and I went to where the orchids were all kept in the little plastic slips. They all had their names turned away from me, and I turned each one around, and yes, can you believe it? There was this plant. So I have invested so much time and energy and love into this plant. I'm terrified of killing it because I'll never find another one. I did repot it straight away, but I kept it indoors. So it just likes, I think, warmer winter nighttime minimums. And as you can see, it's produced a whole new plant for me. So it's doing well. And I'm not quite sure what size it will need to be to flower. So we'll wait and see. Anyway, that's a bit of a rambling story. This is Ionopsis. And in fact, this is a Gomessa, which I bought from a plant fair not that long ago, which I also made a video about, which I will link below. So if these two met in perfect harmony on some balmy summer's evening, they would produce this, an Ionocidium, which happens to be called Popcorn. So they obviously had fun that night, and maybe they named their firstborn after popcorn, you know, like Brooklyn Beckham was named after the place of his conception. Anyway, plant lovers, there you are. There's some new things for me and things that are doing things that are charming. Oh, and there was one thing I was going to show you. That's right. Look behind you, Matthew. Here is my Paphiopedilum, which I have had for 3 years now. It flowered in the first year for me and then didn't. And now I think I see, and I'm not sure if you can see, I'll film it. But in there, and this is the way to tell if you've got a flower spike, a flower bud on paths, is that there is a shadow in the V of those two leaves, which is the shape of a bud. And now's the time it should be forming. It's sort of mid-autumn, and these flower in winter for me, or very late winter, and it does take quite a while for the flower to grow and to open. So I am hoping, plant lovers, that that is a flower bud in my path. It's the most beautiful bloom, so believe me, you'll see when it's in bloom. But look at the leaves too, aren't they fabulous mottled leaves? It's a plant that's handsome all year. And as I, you know, complete rookie and new to all this, Paphiopedilums do just take a long time to grow these new fans. So this is the one that bloomed originally, and then this one grew from the base, and it took a whole year to mature to get to a point where it can bloom. Anyway, so there you go. I'm happy that that is hopefully a bloom, and I will certainly show you when it is. Then the other thing that perhaps you cannot see is that this beautiful leafy plant behind me here, this is a lily. I know we're only talking orchids, plant lovers, but I want to show you this, because what is that? That is a flower spike. Can you see? There you are. And this is EUCHARIS grandiflora, which is commonly known as the Amazon lily. So it's a tropical plant, tropical lily, essentially, that can be quite tricky to get to bloom. And I'm growing it indoors, which isn't perhaps great because it's a tropical plant. And I'm not great with tropical plants, I have to say. But it's got a flower spike anyway. So next time I film, perhaps it'll be a backdrop, this beautiful cream lily, which is supposed to be fragrant. Anyway, enough of that, I have digressed. So from me and these 3 orchids, which are new to me and challenging my growing care skills, particularly Hibiki, I do not want to kill this because I will never, well, never say never, but it was the only one I've seen in literally 2 years turn up on the market, so I can't kill it, plant lovers. So send me good vibes for that. I will go back and watch Ninja Orchid's care video about it just to make sure I get it right. But in the meantime, if you want to know what I'm doing next week, hit subscribe. I post every week and publish on a Friday. So until then, plant lovers, I look forward very much to seeing you. Take care where you are, and I'll see you next week.